Honor the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Lift your hands, let's give the Lord some praise. We worship you, Jesus, and we sing. We stand and lift up our hands, for the joy of the Lord is our strength. We bow down and worship Him now. How great, how awesome is He! And of deliverance from all my enemies, till all my fears are gone.
Mr. Chairman, Reverend Daniel Bino, pastor of the Host Church, pastors and members of different churches, Mr. Carlos Williams, Deputy Director of Northern Grenadines Affairs, judges, special invited guests, fellow participants, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. The topic before us is the LGBTQ's ideology and agenda a destructive force in our society? I say vehemently no, and I will try to convince you why I say no. Mr. Chairman, what is LGBTQ? Who is LGBTQ? Mr. Chairman, LGBTQ is the acronym for lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgenders, and queers. For clarification, let me define the terms. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a lesbian is a woman sexually and romantically attracted to other women. In short, a woman loving another woman. Gays relate to persons romantically and sexually attracted to the same sex. This term usually is applied to men. These two groups of people are referred to as homosexuals. Bisexuals are persons sexually attracted to both the same and opposite sex. In other words, the individual could be sexually and romantically attracted to both men and women. A person who is transgender is someone whose gender identity is opposite the sex the person was identified as having at birth. In other words, an individual is born identified as a boy but changes to suit what he desires to be. Queers relate to persons whose gender identity cannot be categorized as solely male or female. These people don't want to be identified as either male or female. Society looks on their behavior as being peculiar and call them queers. Mr. Chairman, is the ideology and agenda of the LGBTQ group a destructive force in society? The question of whether the LGBTQ ideology and agenda are destructive forces in our society is a matter of perspective and can vary widely depending on individual beliefs, values, and societal context. Many persons see the ideology as a challenge to traditional family structure, morality, or religious teaching. They are concerned that the idea of a traditional family will be destroyed. But it is important to remember that the concept of family has evolved and diversified. The essence of family lies in the bonds of love, support, and care that exist between individuals, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. Research has shown that children raised in same-sex households fare just as well as those in traditional families. The LGBTQ and their allies advocate for civil rights, societal acceptance, and equal treatment under the law. Their ideology promotes the idea that all individuals, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity, should have equal rights and opportunities in society. This includes rights related to marriage, adoption, employment, housing, and healthcare. LGBTQ advocates for a society that will accept and respect their sexual orientations and gender identities. They also support the idea that they should have the power to self-identify their sexual orientation and gender identity. Mr. Chairman, The LGBTQ group states that their agenda does not seek to undermine traditional family structure or impose specific beliefs on others. It merely strives for equal rights, protection against discrimination, and the freedom to love and be loved. Mr. Chairman, let us examine these ideologies on the three broad headings: legal, religious, and moral. Legal. In many countries, the LGBTQ ideology has been given legal recognition through court decisions as well as evolving legislative changes. For example, same-sex marriages are legally recognized and given the same benefits as opposite-sex couples. Globally, while some countries are moving towards adopting the LGBTQ ideology, some countries are totally opposed, thereby creating social polarization. While some countries view the LGBTQ ideology as promotion of equality, fostering inclusivity, economic advantages, and reducing discrimination and stigmatization, others are afraid to change and still view it as a form of criminalization. Religious. The views of religious institutions, including various Christian denominations, on LGBTQ issues can vary significantly. Some religious groups fully embrace and support LGBTQ individuals and their rights. They argue that love, acceptance, and inclusion are central to their faith. They view discrimination as incompatible with their religious values. Mr. Chairman, while some other religious denominations take a neutral stance, emphasizing tolerance without full acceptance, other religious groups consider LGBTQ identities and relationships as contrary to their religious teachings. They consider it sinful. Mr. Chairman, moral beliefs about LGBTQ groups differ according to culture and ethical perspectives. Some individuals and societies view supporting LGBTQ rights and identities as immoral imperatives. Some individuals may take a neutral standing on LGBTQ issues, while some other people in society view LGBTQ ideologies and relationships as incompatible with their moral code. Mr. Chairman, regardless of how persons view and accept the LGBTQ ideology and agenda, the question is it destroying our societies? According to a report by Human Rights Watch, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is one of 6 countries in the Western Hemisphere that still criminalizes LGBTQ relationships. Mr. Chairman, as a result, this could engender feelings of discrimination among this group. They fear losing the favor of their families, their place in church, and respect in their workspace. This fear can have negative outcomes like anger, sadness, anxiety, and mental health issues. Mr. Chairman, LGBTQ individuals are an integral part of our society and should be made to feel accepted and included. By recognizing and respecting the rights of LGBTQ individuals, we move closer to creating a society that values diversity, compassion, and equality. The LGBTQ community makes significant contributions to various domains of our society, including, but not limited to, culture, the arts, scientific advancement, the economy, and virtually every other facet of our communal existence. So, Mr. Chairman, should we take the LGBTQ community out of society and put them on Valiso? I think not. I emphatically say no. Excluding them means missing out on the talents and potential contributions of a diverse group of people. Do we have the authority to exclude them from the heavenly kingdom? This question, Mr. Chairman, could be better answered by the religious leaders. Mr. Chairman, I do hope I have established that the LGBTQ ideology and agenda is a matter of perspective and can vary from society to society, and that accepting this ideology can reduce the incidence of discrimination, avoid its negative impact, and can help to develop our society. Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, I strongly disagree with this statement that the LGBTQ ideology and agenda is a destructive force in our society. I believe that accepting their ideology would enhance the fabric of our society rather than tearing it apart, and should be used as a catalyst for positive change and social progress. Mr. Chairman, may God bless our homeland and keep us ever free. I thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Reverend Daniel Bino, pastor of the host church, pastors and members of the different churches, Mr. Carlos Williams, Deputy Director of the Northern Grenadines Affair, judges, special invited guests, fellow participants, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. When we hear someone say that they identify as an LGBT or Q person, we sometimes say, God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Or we liken the behavior to a popular story in the Bible of two cities called Sodom and Gomorrah. We even have popular secular songs speaking against such behavior. This question, is the LGBTQ's ideology and agenda a destructive force to our society, is a matter of personal belief and perspective. It's important to recognize that opinions on this topic can vary widely. So before I go any further, Mr. Chairman, let me break down what LGBTQ stands for. The L stands for lesbian, who by definition is a female attracted to another female. The G stands for gay, who by definition is a male attracted to another male. The B stands for bisexual, which by definition is a person attracted to both male and female. The T stands for transgender, which by definition is a person who was identified as a particular sex at birth and later in life decides to be identified as another sex. The Q stands for queer or questioning, and this is any individual whose sexual orientation is not heterosexual and is still discovering and exploring. The Bible says in Genesis chapter 1 verse 27, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. It also says in Genesis chapter 2 verse 18, and the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an helpmeet for him. Who was that helpmeet, you may ask? Let's see in verses 22 to 23. And the rib which the Lord God has taken from man made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. This is in direct conflict with the framework of the LGBTQ community in many ways. One, it says that God created male and female, which states two specific gender and goes against the non-binary believing persons in this community. Two, God created a female to be a help for a male. Then scriptures proceeds to state that a man should leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. This goes against the lesbian, gays, and bisexual believing persons in this community. 3. God presented a woman to Adam, which lets me know God's original intent was for a man to be with a woman and not the other way around. 4. The woman did not have a choice of who or what she wanted to identify as, or whether she wanted to remain the same or have the same physique as Adam. With these conflicting views presented to our society, Mr. Chairman, by the LGBTQ's framework alone, it causes a disruption to varying belief systems of individuals regardless of their religion. In this regard, their agenda and ideology would be seen as destructive. When we say ideology, we are referring to a set of beliefs and concepts. In our society, we believe that a man should be with a woman, and anything outside of that framework is deemed as abnormal or unacceptable. In the LGBTQ community, they believe that an individual should be with whoever or whatever they want. We were taught in schools, at home, and church that there are two genders, male and female. The LGBTQ community believes that there are over 150 different genders and individuals should have the choice of choosing, rather than it being forced upon them at birth. From a human rights and social justice perspective, many argue that the LGBTQ community has led to a more inclusive and equitable society. Advocates often stress the importance of respecting and supporting the rights of all individuals, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. This leads to my second point, Mr. Chairman. An agenda is the plan organized by time of event or things to do. The LGBTQ's agenda is for equal protection under the law, but according to Ed Vitellamiano, he believes that the true agenda is the complete alteration of society's norm to fit the homosexual views of human sexuality, marriage, and family. Individuals who hold traditional views would perceive this agenda as disruptive. According to an article written by the Casey's Foundation, young people in the LGBT community face higher rates of rejection, violence, suicide, and homelessness when compared to their general population peers, which is why many people and organizations support the LGBTQ's rights by advocating for their equality, arguing that it promotes inclusivity, diversity, and the well-being of the individuals. They see it as a positive force for social progress. So then, Mr. Chairman, one might say that the labeling the community and their pursuit of equality as a destructive force is discriminatory or harmful. Social norms state that a man should be the head of the home, the protector, breadwinner, and leader. We see now that these views are changing as women are becoming more independent. The lesbian feminist movement challenges the perception of heterosexuality and male supremacy as normal and presents alternative ways of thinking about gender and power. The word destroy by definition is to end the existence of something by damaging or attacking it. For it to be a force which is an influence that can cause a person to change their way of thinking or beliefs over time. So based on the definition mentioned above, it can be stated that this community's ideology and agenda is a destructive force to our society. The community's agenda has evolved and developed into a more aggressive approach, where persons are now forced to accept this idea in their everyday lifestyle through movies, TV shows, cartoons, and even advertisements. This force, by definition, is to make someone do something against their will. There is a statement, Mr. Chairman, we jokingly make, like they want all the letters of the alphabet, and interestingly, I believe that's the goal. So it will no longer be A for apple, it would be A for asexual, and B for bisexual, and so on. This would then be the thought to our children, and this will now be their new alphabet as a way to make this the new norm. I hope by now you get a clearer understanding of what the question is asking and why my answer is yes. We no longer have the freedom to voice our opinions or have a different perspective, as this is now being termed as hate speech. Persons are now being arrested for refusing to accept this behavior. For example, a baker in Colorado is currently in court after refusing to bake a gay couple's wedding cake because of his Christian faith. On social media, any word written or spoken about this community gets flagged or even removed because it is deemed as hate speech. In closing, Mr. Chairman, this community's ideology confuses society's norm and the simplicity of two genders. With more ideologies being added by the day, and persons now identifying as planets, stars, and even animals, everything except what God created them to be, prove that it is an attempt to erase God's order of creation. From a spiritual perspective, we can clearly see that the enemy is at work behind these individuals. They are pushing to corrupt God's creation. We need to deal with the spirit in operation without attacking the individual if we want to see change in our society. I thank you.
Mommy, my teacher told me today that if I want, I can be a girl. What would you do if your son came home and told you that her teacher told her that if she wants, she can be a boy. What explanation will you give to your daughter or son? What is his or her pronoun? How does he or she identify? Ponder these questions for a minute. They are quickly becoming part of our new normal. Mr. Chairperson, Reverend Daniel Bino, pastor of the host church, pastors and members of the different churches, Mr. Carlos Williams, Deputy Director of Northern Grenadines Affairs, judges, special invited guests, fellow participants, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant evening. This evening, I will be speaking to you on the topic, is the LGBTQ's ideology and agenda a destructive force to our society? While it may appear that these issues are not yet on our shores, they are quickly approaching. First, let us look at these 5 letters, LGBTQ, what it is and its origin, so we can further understand what I will be talking about. According to gaycenter.org, LGBTQ is an abbreviation for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning. The American Psychiatric Association for many years placed homosexuality in the category of a mental disorder. In 1973, however, it was removed from the list of mental disorders and deemed as a lifestyle choice. Why was this done? This declassification came about because of intense lobbying from gay activist groups. They also determined that too many persons were practicing homosexuality openly for it to be considered a disorder. This is the genesis of the entire LGBTQ movement. One may ask, is homosexuality a new phenomenon? The answer to this question is no. Let me take you back to the Genesis when the 2 angels arrived at Sodom. That evening, Abraham's nephew Lot met them at the city gate. He took the 2 men to his home and fed them. Then all the men of the city surrounded Lot's house and said, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out so that we can have sex with them." Genesis 19:5. We later learned that the whole community was destroyed because of the evil that was present, one which was homosexuality. It was a destructive force to society then, and it is a destructive force to society now. During the past century, the LGBTQ agenda and ideologies have been infiltrated into our schools, communities, and even our churches. These agendas and ideologies have crept in such a subtle way that if we are not careful, we can find ourselves guilty of pushing these agendas unawares. Books such as The Prince and the Dress and Julian is a Mermaid can be found in school libraries all around the world. One of these agendas, not written in ink but can clearly be seen, is the effort made to brainwash children into thinking that nothing is wrong if they want to be the opposite sex. Chairperson, while looking at a cartoon with my 8-year-old cousin, I saw Lincoln Love's best friend Clyde living with 2 daddies. The LGBTQ movement is using the influence of television and internet to condition the minds of the younger generation. Chairperson, LGBTQ's ideology and agenda is indeed a destructive force to our society. It threatens the traditional concept of the family, it is against nature, and it creates an atmosphere of confusion. Firstly, these agendas threaten the traditional concept of the family. According to Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, and I quote, "So God created a man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them." The traditional family, as God intended, started from a union between a created male and a created female. Murdoch 1949 has defined the traditional family as two or more people who are related by blood, marriage, or adoption. He further states that this marriage is between a male and a female. We have seen how the LGBTQ's agenda and ideologies are slowly redefining the meaning of family. The Bible provides God's blueprint for marriage and for his good gift of sex in Genesis 2:24. The gift is only to be enjoyed within a marriage between a man and a woman. There are no exceptions suggested, such as homosexual partnerships. From Genesis on, the Bible praises the marriage of a man and a woman, but it speaks only negatively of homosexual behavior whenever it is mentioned. The Old Testament states, "Do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman." That is detestable. The New Testament agrees, listing homosexual offenders among a list of people who will not inherit the kingdom of God unless they are cleansed through Christ. Homosexual marriage is akin to having two wheels on the left side of the cat and none on the other. The cat goes nowhere and it contributes nothing. Yet, another reason why LGBTQ's agenda and ideologies is a destructive force to our society is because it goes against nature and can stop procreation. Gender is determined by chromosome patterns, not by your feelings. A male gender is determined by the presence of a Y chromosome. A female gender is determined by the presence of two X chromosomes. This is basic biology. Since there are only two genetic expressions, there are only two genders. Society cannot change this. Feelings cannot change this. Surgery cannot change this. And name cannot change this. QB warns that the global trend of gender mainstreaming threatens the fundamental understanding of our very human nature, with dire consequences for children, families, and society as a whole. Nature itself tells us, for new life to begin, there must be a union between sperm and eggs. Sperm and sperm cannot create new life. Neither can an egg and an egg. Think for a moment. What if Noah had placed only transgender, gay, and lesbian animals on the ark? There would have been no animals today. There was a reason God said, two of every kind, male and female. LGBTQ's agenda and ideologies goes against nature and it stops procreation. Furthermore, it creates an atmosphere of confusion. The American Scientific Association reports that 75% of transgenders regret having done surgery to remove their God-given reproductive parts. Kiara Bell, a 23-year-old woman who was prescribed puberty blockers, testosterone, and had her breast removed at the age of 20, is currently taking legal action against the hospital. Bell argues that she should have been challenged more by the medical staff over her decision to transition to a male as a teenager. Today, because of this confusion, she is living in regret. God knows better than all of us. He made us male or female. A plate is a plate, and a cup is a cup. What will happen if I try to make this plate and this cup switch? It cannot happen. A male is a male and a female is a female. Stop the confusion. In conclusion, with all that has been discussed and the thought-provoking questions that were asked, I am sure that you will agree with me that the LGBTQ's ideologies and agenda is indeed a destructive force to our society. Think about it for a moment. Break down in the family structure, interfering with nature, and living in confusion are all recipes for disaster. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Mr. Chairperson, Reverend Daniel Bible, pastor of the host church, pastors and members of the different churches, Mr. Carlos Williams, Deputy Director of Northern Grenadines Affairs, judges, special invited guests, fellow participants, ladies and gentlemen, good night. The given topic is the LGBTQ's ideology and agenda a destructive force in our society? According to your dictionary, the abbreviation LGBTQ is an inclusive term that includes people of all genders and sexualities, such as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, queer, intersex, asexual, pansexual, and allies. Though the movement had begun decades ago, the modern-day movement of the LGBTQ was birthed through the protests and celebration done in New York City in the late 1960s, as cited by M. Fitzgerald, 2022. It was around that time, in the year 1969, that the word pride was used to represent the LGBTQ community, M. Jiggett, 2016. So far, the movement has gained momentum over the years and has managed to do such things as a legalization of gay marriages in 2013. As Christians, we know for a fact that the LGBTQ movement is not biblical. We know this because of verses in the Bible stating such things as, thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is an abomination. Leviticus 18 and verses 22. Therefore, it is of my belief that the LGBTQ ideology and agenda is a destructive force in our society, which can be seen through the transgender revolution, increased parental LGBTQ support, and inclining mental health issues among members of the LGBTQ community. Mr. Chairperson, firstly, the LGBTQ ideology and agenda has caused a transgender revolution. Transgenderism can come about because of gender dysphoria. According to SGEN's 2022, gender dysphoria refers to feelings of distress and discomfort that a person experiences when the assigned gender does not match their gender identity. People who experience gender dysphoria may feel uncomfortable with and distressed over the conflict between the sexual characteristics of their physical body and how they feel and think about themselves. SGENT 2022 also stated that not everyone who has gender dysphoria identify as transgender, but many people diagnosed with gender dysphoria do identify as transgender, gender fluid, or gender non-conforming. Mr. Chairperson, transgender used to be treated as a pre-existing condition, but now there are laws in place to prohibit the discrimination of gender identity, self-declare, and special services in place to support transgenderism such as puberty blockers and gender-affirming surgeries. Since the LGBTQ claims for the section of the environment to exist on their own terms, they are for persons changing their gender into whatever gender they feel they are. Even the anthem, Born This Way, carries the notion, for example, that if you want to feel like a woman in a man's body, then you are a woman and you are born this way. There is no problem with it. Mr. Chairperson, we as Christians know that there is no mistake with God, and as stated in the Bible, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. As Bishop George Scott always said, if you believe you are born this way, you can be born again. For every person in Christ is a new creature. Mr. Chairperson, now imagine a community where there is an increase in men dressing like women and women dressing like men.
What message is this sending to our young people who are the next upcoming generation? K. Parker et al. 2022 stated that when it comes to issues surrounding gender identity, young adults are the leading edge of change and acceptance. Half of adults ages 18 to 29 in America says someone can be a man or a woman even if that differs from the sex they are assigned at birth. With an incoming society where youths are more likely to accept transgenders and where there are transgender support systems, persons with gender dysphoria may be more likely to feel as though that identifying as transgender is absolutely alright. Mr. Chairperson, secondly, the LGBTQ movement has caused an increase in parental support for their community. The age that a child can take puberty blockers is at the age of 10 to 11, though it may start earlier. MayoClinic.com. A child under the age of 16 of age must be informed consent from a parent in order to take puberty blockers, as according to DENET 2021. Children look to parents for guidance, protection, and to help them make the right decisions. However, when they are parents, whether they are members of the LGBTQ or just supporters, believe that their child has a right to choose whether their gender identity, whatever gender identity they identify as, it can be devastating to a child in the end. Mr. Chairperson, a perfect example of this is the unfortunate story of Chloe Cole, a detransitioner. According to McCartney in 2023, Ms. Cole gave a heartbreaking testimony about her medical gender transition as a minor and the lasting medical and emotional scars she faces now that as an adult that she's reversed the sex change process and detransitioned. Ms. Cole was put on puberty blockers at age 12, followed by testosterone, and then a double mastectomy at age 15. A year later, she realized she wasn't transgender and that she made a terrible mistake. Chloe stated that the adults in my life whom I trusted affirmed my beliefs. Now it has caused me lifelong irreversible harm. She also stated, I needed to be given therapy to help me walk through my issues, not affirming my delusion that transforming into a boy would solve all my problems. Mr. Chairperson, Chloe, like other children, put their trust in their parents to help them make good decisions. Mr. Chairperson, her parents failed to protect her from a life-changing decision and align themselves with what she felt at the time instead of helping her overcome her problem. Mr. Chairperson, lastly, the LGBTQ ideology and agenda is a destructive force in our society because it is causing an incline in mental health issues such as suicide and depression. According to Mental Health America, over 4.5% of the U.S. population identify as lesbian, gay, and bisexual. Of those, over 39% reported having mental health issues in the last year, which is about 5.8 million people. Mental Health America also said that the bisexual and transgender communities have the highest rates of mental health concerns within the LGBTQ population. Younger members of the LGBTQ community struggle the most with mental health concerns of all the young groups. One could argue that mental health rates are higher in this group of people rather than their heterosexual counterparts because they are also at particular risk for experiencing shame, fear, and discrimination. Mr. Chairperson, however, what about those who become members of the LGBTQ at a young age and have received acceptance across the board from persons all around them? Mr. Chairperson, one such example of this is a transgender by the name of Jazz. Her mother stated that when Jazz was just 2 years old, he claimed he wanted to be a girl. The transition started then and there. At a young age, Jazz became a famous reality TV transgender star. He underwent puberty blockers and transgender affirming surgery and was accepted by those around him for what he identified as, which is a woman. Now that Jazz is in his early 20s, according to TLC, and that which is evident in the show, Jazz is having mental health problems, in more specifics, depression. So Jazz is still living as a woman. He is claiming that he does not feel like himself. Jazz has a very strong support system and yet is still depressed because he does not feel like himself. Is he what is he supposed to be? No. In conclusion, the LGBTQ movement has gained momentum over the years and has managed to gain access to some of the rights they feel entitled to. Because of this movement, our society has seen the destructive forces of the ideologies and agenda, such as the increased parental support for the community, the transgender revolution, and mental health issues such as suicide and depression. I thank you.
Put your hands together again for Sister Natalia.
Protocol having already been established, good evening again. Mr. Chairman, the topic I have chosen is violence against women and children, a serious public health concern that is destroying the fabric of our society and should be stopped. The United Nations defines violence against women and children as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or mental harm. Violence against women and children can include domestic violence, sexual abuse, emotional violence, and psychological violence. In the case of domestic violence and sexual abuse, these acts, for the most part, are usually perpetrated by men. Domestic violence, also called intimate partner violence, is a pattern of behavior that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. It encompasses all physical, sexual, emotional, economic, and psychological abuse. Mr. Chairman, domestic violence usually occurs between intimate partners. Sexual abuse. Sexual violence is any sexual act committed against the will of another person, either when this person does not give consent or when consent cannot be given because the person is a child, has a mental disability, or is severely intoxicated or unconscious as a result of alcohol or drugs. Sexual harassment encompasses non-consensual physical contact like grabbing, pinching, slapping, or rubbing against another person in a sexual way. Emotional violence includes undermining a person's sense of self-worth through constant criticism, belittling one's abilities, name-calling, or other verbal abuse. Mr. Chairperson, psychological violence involves causing fear by intimidation, threatening, physical harm to self, partner, or children, destruction to property, or forcing isolation from friends, family, school, or work. Mr. Chairman, these actions are reprehensible and can bring about feelings of disdain and contempt. Consider a man beating upon his wife or girlfriend. Disgusting. Even more disgusting is a man sexually abusing a child, disabled person, and even an infant. Certainly, Mr. Chairman, we have all heard about incidences that occur in our country, even closer to home in our tranquil Beckley. We have heard about young men being sent to jail for raping infants. We have heard about fathers and stepfathers molesting their children. These fathers and stepfathers whose duty is to keep their families safe and secure. We have heard about persons calling their children worthless, no good, and all sorts of derogatory names, which undermines the children's sense of self-worth. These actions have serious repercussions on the victims. The victims often suffer from long-term emotional trauma, decreased self-esteem, and a sense of powerlessness. This impacts the victim's ability to lead fulfilling lives and participate fully in society. Therefore, their ability to contribute meaningfully to the development of society is seriously compromised. Research has shown that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 children have experienced some form of violence in their lifetime. These numbers should shock and motivate us to take action. The time is now. Violence against women and children should be stopped. Mr. Chairman, no more. Mr. Chairman, what measures can be put in place to stop this heinous crime? Mr. Chairman, it is our collective responsibility to ensure that every individual, regardless of their gender or age, could live their life free from fear and violence. We must break the barriers of silence and shame that often shrouds these acts of violence. Education and awareness plays a vital role in eradicating this issue. We must educate ourselves and others about the signs of abuse at an early age, the resources available, and the importance of speaking out. By providing comprehensive sex education and teaching healthy relationship skills, we can empower young people to develop respectful and non-violent attitudes towards women and children. Schools should incorporate age-appropriate curriculums that foster empathy, communication, and equality. Mr. Chairman, community involvement is vital in preventing violence. Engaging community leaders, organizations, and individuals in awareness campaigns, workshops, and discussions can help change societal attitudes and promote a culture of respect and nonviolence. The media plays an important role in shaping public opinion. Therefore, it is crucial for the media industry to take responsibility in portraying women and children with respect and dignity, avoiding sensationalism, and reinforcing positive narratives. Mr. Chairman, by using these platforms to raise awareness and promote positive role models, the media can contribute to a culture of nonviolence. Mr. Chairman, we must also encourage bystanders to actively intervene, not just to condemn violence. We must act when it is witnessed, support the victim, and report the action witnessed to relevant authorities. By working together, we can create a society where violence against women and children is not tolerated. Mr. Chairman, by fostering a culture of empathy, understanding, and support, we can empower survivors to come forward and seek help. Mr. Chairman, legislation is another crucial part of combating this issue. Existing laws should be strengthened, and we must ensure that they are implemented effectively. Eliminate any loopholes within the law that will allow violence against women and children to persist. Perpetrators of violence must face the consequences for their actions, and survivors must receive the support and justice they deserve. In summary, Mr. Chairman, violence by men against women and children has sadly become normalized in our society. However, we cannot accept this as the status quo. We must confront this issue head-on and with knowledge, empathy, and determination. By educating, legislating, and shifting societal attitudes, we can break the cycle of violence and create a safer and more equitable world for all. I thank you.
Protocol already being established. Tonight, Mr. Chairman, I would like to highlight the profound significance of engaging in a wide variety of sports in our lives. Sports goes beyond mere game. They form an integral part of our physical, mental, and social well-being. Before I go into the benefits of engaging in a sport, I'd like to define what a sport is. A sport is an activity involving physical exertion and skills in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. There are different types of sports. We have netball, football, which happens to be my favorite, volleyball, track and field, cricket, basketball, tennis, to name a few. As an aspiring football player, I would always advocate for persons to take part in a sport, whether long-term or for fun. While each sport is different in nature, Mr. Chairman, they all require a certain level of discipline and intense training. Which leads to my first point. Participating in a sport keeps us physically fit. Whether it's the agility required in football, also known as soccer in some parts of the world, the endurance demanded by long-distance running, the strength built through weightlifting, or the flexibility achieved in gymnastics. Different sports offer unique avenues to stay in shape, develop robust muscles and bones, and reduce the risk of illness. They are the key to maintaining our health in a world that demands constant movement. Playing a sport also works wonders for our mind. The strategic thinking in chess, the precision of archery, the teamwork involved in basketball, and the mental fortitude required in golf all teach us to work hard and set goals and persevere in the face of challenges. They boost our confidence and help us conquer obstacles. By training frequently and working towards seasonal goals, you can build your confidence and abilities. This is especially noticeable through tournaments and matches where you and your team put your skills to the test. Small incremental achievements throughout the years can build personal confidence over time, giving you the ability to take on new projects and assignments. When we engage in sports, we can momentarily forget our worries and bask in the pride of our achievements. When we are physically active, our mind gets a chance to unplug from daily stresses and strains of life. Physical exercises reduces the stress hormones in our body and stimulates the release of endorphins. These endorphins may give us more energy and focus. But you see, Mr. Chairman, sports are not just about individual achievement. They bring people together. Whether it's the friendship on the soccer field, the shared excitement of a tennis match, the unity among athletes at the Olympic, or the worldwide connection of fans during the World Cup. Sports fosters cooperation, communication, and working toward common objective. This sense of togetherness is a powerful force that can transcend boundaries. Sports can offer a new way to meet others and you may not interact with day to day. As a result, you can make new friends. And who knows, playing a sport can even open new business opportunities for you. Take, for example, Michael Jordan, a retired six-time NBA championship winner and the greatest basketball player of all time, has endeavored in a number of business ventures and now has a net worth of $2 billion. One of his business ventures is the sneaker brand Air Jordan, which is the best-selling sneaker brand to date. He is also the owner of a fine dining restaurant called Michael Jordan Steakhouse. Research has shown that children who play sports develop stronger bones and muscles, leading to a smaller chance of physical injuries. Physical exercise before the onset of puberty has been identified as a way of enabling children to become stronger, a great foundation for future growth. For children, sports also serve as a valuable school for life. They teach responsibility, time management, and the importance of commitment. These skills become their foundation as they grow into adulthood, just as the dedication and perseverance of athletes in various sports inspire them to dream big and work hard. Sports have an extraordinary ability to promote peace between nations. Think about the Olympic Games, a symbol of global unity and a testament to humanity's shared love for sports. Athletes from all corners of the world come together and celebrate the spirit of competition. In events like the World Cup, they showcase their passion for the game and demonstrate that sports transcends language and culture. In conclusion, playing a diverse range of sports is not only enjoyable, but also a pathway to a healthier body, a sharper mind, and a stronger global community. It imparts values, builds character, and connects people in ways that few other activities can. Let us recognize and celebrate the importance of all sports, from soccer to golf, from archery to tennis, and encourage everyone, young and old, to participate and reap the countless benefits they offer. I thank you.
Janice, why your face long and so? Y'all, you know Zachary left me and his children and is now with Cynthia who lives up the road and she's pregnant. Imagine. Just the other day we had gender reveal party and all these pictures on the media. Wait, what happened to the wedding you all were planning since 5 years ago? Y'all, the struggle is real. No, you all are doing things the wrong way. Chairperson, with protocol already established, I present my second topic to you tonight. Strengthening our families, restoring God's design. How can our society get back to the biblical model of family in today's world? Chairperson, for something to need strengthening, it would imply that that thing has been weakened. And for something to need restoring, it would only suggest that that thing has been destroyed. According to Google, the biblical model of the family is defined as, and I quote, "The family is a foundational institution of society ordained by God, constituted by marriage, and is composed of persons related by marriage, blood, or adoption." End of quote. Permit me to expound a little on this, Mr. Chairperson. The foundation of the family should be laid on Christ. Then there should be a husband in the family whose role is to lead, protect, and provide for his family. Next, the wife, whose role is to comfort, teach, and nurture her family. And the children, whose duty is to honor and obey their parents. Chairperson, I am sure you would agree with me when I emphatically state that there has been a drastic breakdown in the family structure. According to Thomas Corren Research Unit in the University of London 2022, 52% of children born today will experience family breakdown before their 16th birthday, which is over 3.2 million children across the world living in broken homes. This is a grave matter, which indicates that there's need for re-anchoring our families to the biblical paradigm. I will point you to 3 ways in which we can do that. Number 1, put God first. Psalms 127:1 states, "Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain." Acts 17:28 tells us that it's through Him we live, function, and have our identity. For without Him, our efforts are in vain. Not only is it important to have individual time with God, but it is also vital to set aside time for family devotions, which enables bonding time within the family structure. Attending church as a family to praise God is pertinent, as emphasized in Joshua 24:15. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So, Mr. Chairperson, what we learn at church guides us to improve our spirituality and live better lives. Secondly, avoid fornication. Fornication, as defined by the Oxford Dictionary, is sexual intercourse between persons not married to each other. Envision this, Mr. Chairperson. Jerry has 2 baby mothers, Kim and Pam. Because Kim and Pam have contention, the children can't interact with each other. Jerry has no relationship with his children because both mothers don't want Jerry around. Chairperson, does this scenario sound familiar? Are we seeing a lot of these families in our society? Yes! This is the product of fornication. Sadly, Mr. Chairperson, more children have smartphones than they do fathers. In the Old Testament, all sexual sin was prohibited by the Mosaic law. And in the New Testament, we are admonished to continue avoiding sexual sins. 1 Corinthians 7:2 states, "Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and every woman her own husband." Our culture's view on marriage is changing right before us. As a matter of fact, men are intentionally not marrying. After all, why buy the cow when the milk is free? Which brings me to my final point, Chairperson. We can strengthen our families by restoring marriages. Webster's dictionary defines restoring as, and I quote, to reinstate someone or something to a former condition. End of quote. Genesis 2:24 emphasizes the significance on marriage when it states, "Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh." Yet, today, we see God's idea of a perfect marriage being eroded. Chairperson, according to the American Psychological Association, approximately 60 to 70% of marriages end in divorce. Simple things such as, "I can't sleep with him anymore, he's snoring too loudly." "She's such a hardened woman, I tired telling her to put my gravy on my rice." Couples are getting divorced for. Chairperson, restorative measures must be implemented. And the question is, where do we start? Ephesians 5:22 to 25 states that wives must submit to their husbands, and husbands should love their wives as Christ loved the church. We need to go back to Christ-centered marriages, where husbands take pride in loving their wives, and wives respect their husbands. If we want marriages restored, we need to reinstate men in their rightful position as head of the home. Husbands are responsible for protecting and leading their families, while wives were given a unique responsibility to nurture, comfort, teach, and love. Our culture today has embraced the new phenomenon called feminism, where women seek to have the same status as men, and this has caused a disastrous effect on marriages. Wives need to embrace their distinctive role in building a family. In conclusion, Chairperson, from the Garden of Eden, there has been a war against families. The foundation has been eroded and needs to be restored. We must go back to the basis of morality, reinstate God in his rightful position, teach young men and women that fornication, while sweet, brings destruction to the family structure. And we must reestablish husbands and wives to their original positions and purposes. According to a quote by Michael J. Fox, the family is not just an important thing, it is everything. A good family lays the foundation for a better church, better schools, a better community, a better society, a better nation, and by large, a better world. Mr. Chairperson, I thank you.
Good evening. The protocol has already been established. My prepared topic is called The Infiltration of Worldly Influences in the Church. Mr. Chairman, we live in a world of competing ideas and worldviews. In an increasingly globalized and interconnected world, Christians are more aware of and influenced by disparate views than ever. Banner 2017. According to W. Jackson, over the past several decades, there has developed a growing mentality that the church is an outdated organism. Somehow, we have lost touch with the millennial generation. It is therefore imperative, they say, that we update the church model. We must make it more trendy. As a church, we know that it is of great importance that those who replace the older generation not only identify as Christians, but have a solid foundation in Christ. As Bishop George Scott and so many other pastors would say, they believe that this is a generation that the enemy is preparing to meet the Antichrist. It would seem as if the generations prior were more upholding of biblical values and truths than the generation today. which has led to worldly influences infiltrating our churches. Mr. Chairman, the compromising of biblical standards, preaching of the New Age teachings, political division in churches is proof enough to show the influence of the world in our churches today. Mr. Chairman, firstly, political division in churches show the influence of the world in our churches today. Countries like America have become increasingly divided by politics in recent years, and so have its Protestant churches, according to a study released by Lifeway in 2018. The study concluded that in America, more than half, 57% of Protestant churchgoers under 50 say they prefer to go to church with people who share their political views. However, Mr. Chairman, it is not just congregants but also pastors who use their pulpits to preach politics instead of gospel. S. Franklin 2020 stated that some churches launch themselves into this worldly chaos from their own pulpits. Many pastors feel strongly compelled to focus almost exclusively on matters of country and politics, especially in election years. Mr. Chairperson, all these things can cause division within a church. I am not saying that Christians should have nothing to do with politics. It is evident in order for government to make good decisions, the church should be involved in prayer and cover our leaders. In the Bible, prophets or seers, such as Nathan, were at times in contact with the kings in their time, giving them a word from God in order to steer them in the right direction. Notwithstanding, we as a body of Christ should have division because of political views. How can a kingdom stand if it is divided? We are the ones who are supposed to be influencing the government, not politics or government influencing us. Mr. Chairperson, secondly, the compromising of biblical standards shows how the world has influenced our churches today. Psalms 119 from verses 1 to 4 says, "Blessed are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord. Blessed are those who keep his testimonies, who seek him with their whole heart, who also do no wrong but walk in his ways." Mr. Chairperson, according to Kenneth Copeland Ministries, Satan is subtle. He knows most Christians won't drop right in and compromise for the sake of it. They have to be convinced that it's no big deal, or even certain biblical standards are outdated or no longer relevant. Christians may sometimes compromise in ways such as being silent when it comes to the issue of sin and sexual immorality, bending the truth of God to fit your own ungodly narrative, or even watching entertainment that is filled with sin. Mr. Chairman, one thing we as Christians will always remember is that God's standards must be upheld, guarded, and not watered down. We shall live for God and be transforming our minds to what He desires every day. We cannot be conformed to this world, but rather show the attitude and character God desires within us. We as Christians should not be afraid to be bold and uncompromising for God. If a person is compromising their life to have a balanced appearance of God and the world, they are lukewarm. There can be no balance. Choose God. See Andrews 2022. Mr. Chairman, lastly, the adaptation of New Age teachings among Christians is another proof to show how the world is influencing our churches. One ex-New Age believer wrote, "When Jesus saved me and I left the New Age to follow Jesus, I thought that I was done with it. I was shocked to find how many New Age practices have infiltrated the church. The devil is sowing tares amongst the wheat. For example, some believers believe in yoga, which is highly demonic. Each pose is bowing to a specific pagan deity. Yoga is not just stretching, it is idolatry. Even the slogan, "Believe in yourself," is a New Age teaching that says that you need to follow your heart. The Bible says that the heart is deceitful, and anyone who takes an honest inventory of their life can see that the heart misleads us. Even astrology and the reading of horoscopes are a part of New Age teachings. According to Devote 2019, the tolerance for these idolatrous practices is increasing as the church adopts worldly behaviors. So everywhere that astrology is mentioned in the Bible, it is associated with pagan idolatry. She also stated that New Age is a devil's tool to infiltrate our church. We must become equipped with wisdom and discernment so that we recognize and avoid New Age practices. Mr. Chairman, in summary, as each generation passes, God's standards for His church has been diminishing because of the infiltration of worldly influences in our churches. It would seem as if the church changes to go with trends and do such things as compromising biblical standards, adapting New Age teaching, and causing political division within the church. All of these things give insight on how the world has been influencing our churches. I thank you.
So Kamari's topic for the impromptu, goals are good for you. I say again, goals are good for you.
Protocol already been established. My topic tonight is goals are good for you. Firstly, I would like to define what a goal is. A goal is an objective set out for someone to do. Why we set goals? We set goals for time management so we can get everything in order and under control. When we set goals for when times get hard and when everything is not in our hands. I thank you.
So Sister Natalia's topic is, if I were the Prime Minister, I would. I say again, if I were the Prime Minister, I would.
The protocol has already been established. If I were the Prime Minister, I would make sure that there are good engineers in place to make sure that roads are built properly. For example, the road that we have in Bluff, I would make sure that there are good engineers in place to make sure that our roads are built perfectly. Number two, I will make sure that our country have at least 3 times in a year that we can come together to have fasting and prayer for our nation. I will also make sure that our children have a good education and are biblically rounded individuals across the board. I thank you.
The topic is crime in SVG. Crime in SVG.
Protocol already been established. My topic tonight is crime in SPG. Right now in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, this crime rate has skyrocketed significantly. Individuals believe that turning to crime is more beneficial than going to an honest 9 to 5. For example, we have individuals that are entering the drug traffic trade where they believe that one day of working and trafficking an illegal drug is more beneficial than going to work and working 5 days a week, 7 days a week. I believe that in our country, we should implement more stricter laws that would deal with these individuals to set an example for our upcoming generation to show that it's not okay for them to take the easy road. I believe that with these new implemented laws, our country would be safer and more. I thank you.
With protocol already being established, I present to you my topic tonight, social media. Social media can be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. These medias can be used to interact, find information, etc. We no longer have to send letters or go to the post office to wait so long. Sometimes it can take 2 months, even a year. We now can go on WhatsApp or I don't know if it's still around, but Skype or any other visual whatever to call our family members or friends abroad. We are now possessing a smartphone that we can use to go on apps to contact our friends or families. We no longer have to go to libraries to search on these big shelves and search through names and all of these things to find books. We can now go on Google and look for anything. It is right at our fingertips. Although social media is a very useful something, it can be used negatively. It causes distractions for children. You can see it now in the grades. It's a means for cyberbullying. We now see on social media there are a lot of videos going around where persons are laughing at each other. In contrast to these, as I said earlier, it can help. We can go online and look for information, and we can interact with each other. I thank you.
So Kevlin's topic is drugs.
Drugs can have a good and a negative impact on our community. There are positive and negative drugs. But let us start with the negative drugs. It had a time when they had a cocaine discovery in some part of St. Vincent. And that led to a huge outbreak in our communities. And we even had searching for drugs in our schools. It was a time of pride. Every money you had in your hand, you didn't know whether it was drug money or hard or cash. Drugs can lead to depression, anxiety, and bad symptoms. Study shows that people who take drugs usually end it with suicide. So, all I have to say to you is, before you think about taking drugs, go and think about the side effects, after effects, and the bad things that could happen between you and your family members.
Let's appreciate him. He did a wonderful job thinking on the spot. So Christian's topic is the importance of good manners. The importance of good manners. You want to know?
Pleasant good night, ladies and gentlemen. The importance of good manners is about certain things that people going on the road and they don't have manners. And they can say, okay, some people passing on the street and they ain't have no manners. So say good night, good afternoon, pleasant and so on. But we have to get good manners for everything. And we should not be afraid for saying things. We should have to get some manners and important things.
Wonderful, brave as Krista.
Pleasure. It's mine. Pleasant evening. Chairman. Pastor Scott, I recognize. I haven't seen Graham. Pleasant evening. I think I saw Jillian. Jillian? Pleasant good evening. Parents of those participating here tonight. I recognize them all, but I recognize two of the participants as being relatives of mine. And I won't say anything about Miss Charles because she reminded me of myself as somewhat late. Yeah. But I must say, Pastor Graham, that Pastor Bino, that I'm very impressed and very happy with today's proceeding, today's event, and I congratulate you, congratulate the organizers of this event, and I encourage you to make this an annual thing. So I look forward to edition number 2, right? And I commit, like I've done here, with this edition, to edition 2, 3, 4, and beyond.
Marvelous job. I want to also thank the AFM Apostolic Federation Church for putting on this marvelous event. It would have been really nice to see more churches taking part because I think it's really important that speaking, if you can't speak, you can't navigate your way in this life. It's very important. So, there were a few weaknesses and there were also some strengths. All of the participants were eloquent. Research was evident. Most of them utilized the time appropriately or fully or well. And they also appeared confident, which is very important. Weaknesses. The use of techniques. When you're in a public speaking, your mannerisms are very important. It makes the difference because sometimes we zone out and we just want to do something to bring us back in. Creativity is key. So, you could start your introduction in creative ways. You could use an anecdote, you could use a quote, you could sing if you want to sing, whatever you must do. But be creative. Using references appropriately as well in your research. That is also key because you must document the work or cite the work of other people in your reports. And not just cite it. If you use it, make sure you be clear. Emphasis and intonation was also another weak area as well. And complete research. As I said before, I want us to all give the participants a round of applause. I will now hand over to the chairperson who will deliver the final results.